The scent of roasted garlic and thyme wrapped around Clara like a warm blanket as she stirred the risotto. Outside the kitchen window, a soft February rain traced silver lines down the glass, blurring the twinkling lights of the city into a constellation of wet gold. The rhythmic, calming scrape of her wooden spoon against the heavy Le Creuset pot was a meditation. In the living room, the low murmur of a documentary played, and she could just see the top of her grandmother's silver head, motionless, undoubtedly asleep. Nan's knitting, a perpetually half-finished sock, lay in a chaotic puddle of lilac wool on her lap. This was Clara's universe at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. The quiet alchemy of the kitchen, the sleeping elder, the city sighing in the rain. It was a universe built brick by emotional brick over the past 5 years. It was a universe that, tonight, felt peacefully complete, yet always carried the faint, fossilized imprint of another life. Her phone buzzed on the counter, a name flashing that still, after all this time, sent a tiny, involuntary jolt through her. Evan. Not a call, a text. Her thumb hovered for a second before swiping. "Hey, Clara. Mom's finally going through the attic, found a box of your stuff, some books, a scarf. Also, she asked me to give you this. It was in her jewelry case." A second later, a photo appeared. It was a small velvet pouch, midnight blue, frayed at the drawstrings. Clara didn't need to see what was inside. Her breath hitched. The risotto forgotten, she leaned against the counter, the cool marble seeping through her thin sweater. 5 years. 5 years since the engagement dinner that wasn't. Then the air had been thick with a different kind of heat, the cloying perfume of stargazer lilies in the too formal dining room of the Gilded Elm, the oppressive weight of expectation. Clara had worn emerald green, a color Evan said brought out the flecks in her hazel eyes. She'd felt like an imposter, a bright bird trapped in a gilded cage. Evan's family sparkled with a cold, hard gloss, his father's diamond cufflinks, his mother's razor-sharp smile, the icy tinkle of champagne flutes. The conversation had been a minefield of polite inquiries that felt like interrogations. Her job, graphic designer for a small, sustainable clothing brand. Her family, just my Nan, really, she raised me. Her education, state school, then art college. Patricia, Evan's mother, had listened with the tilted head of a botanist examining a mildly interesting weed. It was over dessert, a tortured construction of chocolate and gold leaf, that Patricia, swirling a glass of amber dessert wine, had let the mask slip. "It's just so refreshing, Clara," she'd purred, "to see a young woman with such simple tastes. Evan has always been so terribly generous, so easily impressed by a pretty face. We were just worried, you understand, that someone might see his potential and try to dig for gold." The words hung in the lily-scented air, ugly and clear. Clara's face went numb. She looked at Evan, seated beside her. He didn't flinch. Instead, he let out a short, sharp, dismissive laugh, a sound meant to sand the edges off the insult, to make it a shared joke for the table. "Oh, Mother, don't be dramatic," he chuckled, reaching for his port. "Clara's not a gold digger. She loves me for my winning personality." He winked at Clara, expecting her to play along, to shrink the moment into something manageable with her compliance. But Clara didn't feel managed. She felt a seismic click, a final settling into a truth she'd been ignoring. The fancy restaurant, the constant pressure to be more, the way her quiet weekends with Nan were now quaint, the way her beloved, cluttered apartment was a starter home. She saw in that moment the next 50 years, her voice growing smaller, her world shrinking to the dimensions of his approval, her Nan becoming a secret source of shame. She didn't slam her napkin down, she didn't cry. In a silence that felt louder than any scene, she slowly, carefully slipped the heavy solitaire diamond ring from her finger. It felt alien now, a cold, expensive pebble. She placed it gently, precisely, in the center of her gold-rimmed dessert plate, where it glinted cruelly next to the smudge of chocolate. Then, from the large tote at her feet, a bag Evan had mocked as a hippie sack, she pulled out a small wrapped package tied with baker's twine. She'd brought it as a hostess gift, a peace offering for Patricia. It was a jar of her Nan's famous fig and rosehip jam, made from the fruits of their own tiny community garden plot. "This is for you, Patricia," Clara said, her voice unnervingly calm. "Something sweet, made with patience and from a place that's real. I think you need it more than I do." She stood, picked up her bag, and walked out. The last sound she heard was Evan's sputtered, "Clara, for God's sake, you're overreacting." The rain that night had been cold and needling, but as she hailed a cab, she felt the first fierce bloom of warmth in her chest. She was going home. "Clara, you all right, love? Something's burning." Nan's voice, raspy with sleep, pulled her back. Clara jolted, grabbing the risotto spoon. "It's okay, Nan, just daydreaming." She gave the rice a frantic stir, adding a ladle of warm stock. The creamy, releasing sigh of the grains soothed her. She served up 2 bowls, carrying them to the small, round table by the window. Nan was now awake, folding her knitting with stiff, careful fingers. Her hands were a map of her life. Blue veins like rivers, knuckles swollen with arthritis, but still capable of incredible gentleness. "You were a million miles away," Nan observed, accepting her bowl. She took a bite, closing her eyes. "Perfect. You got the al dente just right." This was their ritual. The evaluation of the al dente, the commentary on the rain, the gentle unpacking of the day. Nan had been their anchor that night 5 years ago. She hadn't said, "I told you so." She'd simply put the kettle on, fetched a worn flannel blanket, and said, "Your feet must be frozen in those silly shoes. Off with them." She'd listened, her old terrier, Buster, long since passed, in her lap, as Clara's calm shattered into great heaving sobs of relief and grief. Later, over tea that was more sugar than liquid, Nan had said, "Any man who laughs when his mother calls you a thief of hearts or purses isn't a man who knows how to hold a treasure. You left the ring, but you left the jam too. That tells me everything I need to know about my girl." Now, looking at the photo of the velvet pouch, Clara knew what it contained. Not the ring, something else. "Nan," she said, pushing her phone across the table, "Evan texted. His mother found this." Nan peered, then dug out her spectacles from her cardigan pocket. She looked, and a slow, knowing smile spread across her face, deepening every wrinkle. "Well, I'll be. She kept it." "Kept what?" Clara asked, though she knew. "The timple, of course." When Clara packed her things from Evan's pristine apartment, she'd left in a hurry, a numb efficiency guiding her. She'd missed a few items, she knew, some paperbacks, a woolen scarf Nan had made, and nestled in the back of Evan's bedside drawer, forgotten in the emotional wreckage, the velvet pouch. It held a silver thimble, not valuable. It was tarnished, slightly dented at the rim. It had belonged to Clara's mother, a woman more ghost than memory, who had left when Clara was 3. It was one of the only things she'd left behind. Nan had given it to Clara on her 18th birthday. She was never much for sewing, Nan had said, her voice tight. But she held this. It's something. Clara had carried it through her 20s as a talisman, a tiny, hard knot of unanswered questions. She'd shown it to Evan once in a moment of vulnerability. He'd turned it over in his well-manicured hands and said, "Huh, quaint. You should get it cleaned, maybe plated in gold. Silver's a bit dull." She hadn't. She'd stopped carrying it. Why would she keep it? Clara wondered aloud. Guilt, maybe? Nan said pragmatically, scooping another mouthful. Or finally found a conscience tucked behind her diamond studs, or maybe she just knew it wasn't hers to throw away. She fixed Clara with her milky blue gaze. "Are you going to get it?" Clara looked at the rain, at her cozy, book-cluttered apartment, at her grandmother's steady, waiting face. This was her gold. This, right here. The al dente perfection of a Tuesday night risotto, the shared silence, the resilience woven into their very ordinary, precious life. The thimble was a ghost from a past that no longer fit. "No," Clara said, the decision feeling solid in her gut. "It's just a thing. What it meant, I don't need it anymore. I have everything right here." Nan nodded, satisfied. "Good girl. Now eat before it gets cold." But later, as she washed the dishes, the image of the pouch nagged at her. It wasn't about wanting the thimble back. It was about closing a circle, about not letting Patricia's act, whether guilt or grace, hang in the air. Clara dried her hands. She went to the pantry, to the very back, where a few remaining jars of Nan's jam sat like captured summer. She picked one, fig and rosehip, the same recipe. She wrapped it in a simple brown paper, tying it with twine. She sat at the table and wrote a note. "Patricia, thank you for finding the thimble. Please keep it or donate it. Its work with me is done. I thought you might like another jar. Some things, made with time and care, improve with age. Best, Clara." She didn't sign it with love, but she signed it with jam. It was both a peace offering and a quiet declaration. I am who I am. I make jam. I take care of my own. This is my wealth. She addressed it to Evan's parents' house, knowing he'd likely be there dealing with the attic. The next morning, she dropped it in a postbox, the clunk of the metal flap a definitive sound. Weeks passed. The incident faded into the background of a busy life filled with work deadlines, trips to the market with Nan, and the slow, joyful planning of turning their tiny balcony into a container garden. The first crocuses pushed through the cold earth in the park below. Then, on a Saturday morning bright with the kind of sharp, clear light that only early March can bring, the doorbell rang. Nan was at her weekly aquafit class, my old lady disco, she called it, and Clara, elbow deep in seed packets, answered it. A courier stood there with a small, flat, rigid package. She signed for it, puzzled. The return address was a law firm she didn't recognize. Heart thumping with irrational anxiety, she opened it at the kitchen table. Inside, under layers of protective foam, was a simple, elegant frame, and behind the glass was not a document, but a recipe card. The paper was old, the once vibrant patterns faded to soft pastels. The handwriting was looping, graceful, and unfamiliar. At the top, it read, "Eleanor's Resilience Cake." Below, the ingredients were listed in ounces and cups. Sturdy flour, the kind that lasts, a pinch of salt for tears, sour milk, because sometimes things turn, wild honey found in sunshine, walnuts for strength, 3 eggs for new beginnings. The method was written in prose. Cream the honey with the goodness left in the larder. Beat in the eggs one by one, each a commitment. Fold in the dry things and the sour milk gently, for resilience is tender. Pour into a greased tin, the one with the scratch on the bottom, it holds heat best. Bake in a steady oven until a knife comes out clean. Let it cool on the rack. Share with a pot of strong tea. Tucked into the corner of the frame was a small, plain envelope with her name on it. The handwriting was now familiar, Patricia's, sharp and angular. Clara. The thimble prompted the attic, and the attic held more secrets than mine. This recipe card was in a box of my mother-in-law's things, Eleanor, Evan's grandmother. She died when Evan was very young. I never knew her. My husband, Richard, tells me she made this cake constantly during the war and after, when they had nothing. She could make a feast from scraps. He says the whole house would smell of honey and nuts, and no matter how bad the news, they felt rich. I found it next to a bundle of letters from her brother who never came home. She was resilient. I think I've spent my life trying to look strong and confusing that with actually being so. I surrounded myself with hard, shiny things, thinking they were armor. You walked out of that restaurant with your head high, leaving behind the shiniest thing we could offer. But you left a jar of jam. You make jam. You know about transforming the simple into something that sustains. I am sorry. It is a small word for a great failing. I was cruel, and my son was a coward. I am trying to understand the recipe. The thimble is yours if you want it, but I thought you should have this too. It felt more yours than mine. Patricia. Clara traced the glass over the faded writing. Eleanor's resilience cake. She imagined a woman she'd never met in a kitchen long gone, beating eggs and hope together during a blackout. She imagined Patricia in her silent, perfect mansion, discovering this fragment of a tougher, truer woman she'd married into, but never understood. The anger she'd carried, a cold, small stone in her heart, finally dissolved. It wasn't about forgiveness, not exactly. It was about recognition, a thread, fragile but undeniable, connecting her to Eleanor, to Patricia, to all the women who tried to make sweetness from sourness, steadiness from uncertainty. When Nan came home, humming and damp-haired, Clara showed her the card. Nan read it, then read Patricia's note. She was quiet for a long time. "Well," said Nan finally, her voice thick, "that's something, isn't it? A recipe. More valuable than a diamond, if you ask me." She looked at Clara. "Shall we make it?" That afternoon, their kitchen was filled with a new kind of alchemy. They used the last of the local honey from the market, sour cream instead of milk, the walnuts Nan had hoarded for Christmas. They used the scratch tin pan. As it baked, a fragrance filled the apartment that was more than honey and nuts. It was the smell of time, of survival, of quiet strength passed hand to hand. They let it cool on the rack as instructed. At dusk, they cut thick slices and brewed a pot of strong, smoky tea. The cake was dense, moist, not too sweet. It was profoundly good. "It's a belonging cake," Nan said, crumbs on her lip. "Tastes like home, whoever's home it is." Clara smiled, looking out at the city lights starting to pierce the blue twilight. She thought of Patricia, alone in her big, quiet house, perhaps attempting her own version. She thought of Evan, who had chosen the easy laugh over the hard truth. She felt a distant pity for them both. They were still digging in the wrong places, looking for gold that rang hollow. Her own hands, dusted with flour and sticky with honey, were rich. They held her grandmother's frail hands over the table. They would plant seeds on the balcony. They would stir risotto on rainy nights. They would, perhaps, one day, hold the hand of someone who understood that treasure wasn't something you dug for, but something you built, batch by batch, moment by moment, in a kitchen filled with the real, sensory, messy proof of love. The gift she'd left was a jar of jam, a quiet testament to her truth. The gift returned was a recipe, a blueprint for resilience, an invitation to a shared human story far older and deeper than any single slight. It was, Clara realized, the truest engagement present she could have ever received. It asked for her hand not in a life of glittering ease, but in the continuous, courageous act of creation. And with a heart full of honeyed light, she accepted.